All right, as we get more, we'll bring it to you. But right now, we want to bring in a special guest of the show, Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister-designate and the author of a brand new book, Bibi, My Story. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us on Fox and Friends Weekend. We appreciate it. We're going to get to your book in just a moment. But first, one of your signature issues is taking a hard stance on Iran and Iran obtaining a nuclear bomb because of the existential nature of an Iranian bomb to the Israeli state. Well, we're learning now that Russia is seeking hundreds of ballistic missiles from Iran. They've basically built a full-fledged defense partnership. What does it mean if Russia partners fully with Iran?
Well, it's bad news. And I don't think it's a defense partnership. It's an offense partnership because you see where these killer drones are being used and how they're being used. I think that's very worrisome. That's one of the things that, if God willing and coalition willing, coalition building succeeds in a few days, I'll sit down with our people and see what we do about it. But you know that I think this highlights the fact that we have to do everything in our power to prevent Iran from developing even worse weapons. That is, the weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons that could threaten not Israel, they threaten you, because Iran says death to Israel, death to the United States, and we certainly don't want to have them have killer drones and give them to anyone, but you certainly don't want to have them have their own, the ultimate killer drones, which are ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, nuclear tipped, that could reach any city in the United States. I think stopping Iran is my first and most important mission in coming back to office.
Well, and Prime Minister, staying on that, the Biden administration has been relying on Russia to negotiate the nuclear deal with Iran. What message does that send, sir?
Look, I'm going to speak to my friend of 40 years, President Biden, with whom I have had a deep friendship, but also some important disagreements. I think the JCPOA should be put on the shelf. That is, I don't think a nuclear deal with Iran should be done, period. It only will pave Iran's path with gold, with hundreds of billions of dollars of sanctions relief, so that they can both export their terrorism worldwide, but also build their nuclear arsenal. And understand that this deal, it's not merely that they'll cheat on it. If they don't cheat, then within 3 to 4 years, they'll have unlimited uranium enrichment capability, which means that they can produce the cores, the nuclear cores, for 100 bombs. And that will place America and Israel and everybody else in great jeopardy. The only way you can stop a rogue state from becoming a nuclear power is by the combination of crippling sanctions and a credible military option, which you should be prepared to use if the threat doesn't work. That's how we stopped Saddam Hussein's nuclear program, Syria's nuclear program, how you stopped Gaddafi, the same Gaddafi who sent these killers to bring down the Lockerbie plane. Why didn't he produce a nuclear weapon? Because you threatened him with military action. North Korea was never threatened, so it created a nuclear arsenal which can threaten now half of Asia and soon the western seaboard of the United States. And Iran is still out there. Iran is 50 times more dangerous than North Korea because it is a theological thuggery. It has an ideology that seeks to dominate and subjugate all of us, if not annihilate us altogether. So we must not let Iran have nuclear weapons. The nuclear deal is bad. I think it's momentarily off the table because the true nature of the regime has been exposed. I don't think anyone in Washington, I hope, is currently thinking of actually cutting a nuclear deal with Iran. They won't keep it, and if they will, it'll be just as bad.
Prime Minister-designate, you heard Pete say it. For everyone listening, you're now having your third turn at power in Israel. And I heard you say dealing with Iran will be your #1 priority. What else can we expect with Benjamin Netanyahu now again in the role of Prime Minister in Israel?
Expanding the circle of peace. We did four historic peace accords with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. With the help of President Trump, with the help of the United States. I think we can expand that beyond anything that we can imagine with some very important countries, and thereby effectively end the Arab-Israeli conflict. I think the Palestinians are holdouts. They're 1% to 2% of the Arab world. I think if we get these this larger accord with most of the Arab world, I think we'll be well on our way to ending the Israeli-Arab conflict and ultimately the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's number two. These are two worthwhile targets, I think. I described them in some length in my book, which I unabashedly am plugging now on your program.
which you
Perfect timing.
Real quick, before we get to the book, I presume that includes Saudi Arabia.
You presume correctly, but it's obviously a Saudi decision. I can only say this, and I say this in the book. I mean, I described some of the things that led to the Abraham Accords in 2015. I gave a speech in Congress where I made a very tough decision to go against a sitting American president whom I respected but disagreed with, Barack Obama, on the Iran nuclear deal. My views have not changed. But when I went there and gave the speech, in real time, I got phone calls from Gulf states that said, we can't believe what your prime minister is doing. We want to meet with him. And that led to clandestine meetings in 2015 that predated the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia, obviously, if it had disapproved, that's the way I would say it diplomatically, if Saudi Arabia had disapproved of the Abraham Accords, they would not have happened. But as it was, we already flew over Saudi airspace before the Abraham Accords were signed, and hundreds of thousands of Israelis are now flying over Saudi airspace to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi, to Bahrain, and it's a tremendous development. So yes, I'd like to see peace with undoubtedly with Saudi Arabia. I think it's a quantum leap if we do it, and we've already had a quantum leap, another quantum leap, but it's up to the Saudis themselves. Let's see what happens. We'll work on it, I assure you.
Well, these stories are the type, as you mentioned, that are in your new book, Bibi, My Story. In it, you talk about your family, your path to leadership, your commitment to defending Israel, and many of the stories you've begun to tell us this morning here on Fox News.
There's the cover right there.
There's the cover right there. You can unabashedly plug your book anytime on this program, Mr. Prime Minister. I want to congratulate you on an amazing political comeback that I believe benefits Israel greatly and, by extension, the United States. God bless you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
You got it, Mr. Prime Minister.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.